Hi, this is Hunter with Spirit Journeys. I'm here to talk with you a little bit about meditation that feels amazing. Now, if you've ever tried meditation or spent much time on the cushion or on the prayer bench at all, you probably know that when you sit down to meditate, it doesn't always feel amazing right away. Often, in fact, the body gets really uncomfortable very quickly when you try to sit still for any period of time. And then right after that, the mind seems to go crazy very quickly. Well, I want to share with you some ways of doing meditation, any form of meditation that can completely transform how you experience that. So it goes from an experience of challenge and struggle and conflict and effort to one of joyful ease. Now, to tell you about how you can meditate in a different way, I need to share a little bit about my background and my history with meditation. And then I can share a little bit about how these discoveries came about and lead you through some very simple, basic ways that you can change your experience with meditation forever. When I first came to meditation, I came to it through a number of different traditions. I was in formation as an Eastern Orthodox monk for 12 years. I studied with Don Miguel Ruiz in the Toltec tradition, practicing what he called Toltec dreaming, which was really a meditation practice, for about 10 years. I have been pouring water in Lakota sweat lodges, which is a practice of sitting in a small, dark space, sweating and feeling heat and feeling all of the emotion and intensity of that heat rising up in you and learning how to breathe with it and how to be still with it. And I've also spent many years sitting in the Zendo, in the Rinzai Zen tradition and in other Buddhist traditions, sitting there on the cushion, trying to be very still and very quiet and very peaceful and not succeeding at all. In fact, in most of the early years of my practice, I was absolutely miserable. I would sit down on the cushion like this, or on the prayer bench, or in the sweat lodge, or in the Toltec dreaming chair. I would sit there tight and rigid and still and fixed and not breathing and not making a sound because I was trying to live up to some image of spiritual perfection that I had probably acquired from a concrete Buddha that I bought at a home decoration store. Very still, very rigid, very fixed, sitting absolutely bolt upright and trying not to make a sound. In fact, in my practice with Miguel, there was one point where he said to us that if anyone moved in the entire 2 hour period that we were sitting doing the practice, he would stop teaching completely. So we all sat there absolutely mortified, not moving and not breathing and trying not to move. And of course, the second I sat down trying to be still, my body started to ache and it started to twitch and it started to hurt. Emotions started to rise up. One time in the Zendo, I can remember tears streaming down my face, snot streaming down from my nose, trying not to move a muscle. It was so miserable and so painful and so completely unnecessary. I remember one time I was sitting in the Zendo on the cushion, surrounded by probably 20 other people. And I did the unthinkable, the absolutely unforgivable in the Zendo, which was I looked up and I looked at the other people who were meditating very cleverly, I thought, though eventually I was spotted. And when I looked up, I saw something that changed everything. I saw that everybody else in the Zendo was absolutely as miserable as I was. They were all very serious and bearing down on their meditation and focused and trying not to be seen breathing or smiling or moving. Very heavy, very focused, and very unhappy. It was a revelation to me. I thought I had been doing something wrong. I thought that I was making some mistake and everyone else was getting it right. And I discovered that everyone else was doing it the exact same way I was, except for two people over in the corner on that side of the Zendo across from me. And what I saw there changed my life. I saw that they were sitting there quietly And as they breathed, their whole body moved slightly, and there was a slight smile on their faces. And there was a feeling of lightness and openness and softness in their eyes and in their faces as they gazed softly down. It looked like they were having an amazing time. I was baffled and startled and very curious. And I spent every moment I could for the rest of that meditation retreat studying them to watch how they practiced and how they walked and how they moved and how they ate their meals. The second thing that happened that changed everything for me was I read, I don't remember where, a beautiful quote by Dogen, who is the founder of Soto Zen. And what he said was, the way is originally perfect and all pervading. Originally perfect and all pervading. How could it be contingent on practice and realization? The zazen, the sitting, I speak of is not meditation practice. It is simply the Dharma gate of joyful ease, the practice realization of totally culminated enlightenment, the Dharma gate of joyful ease. The Dharma is the way the deepest truth of reality expresses itself to us. And what Dogen was saying is that the deepest truth of reality is trying to express itself to us through a quality of joyful ease, not through battling our bodies and trying to make them sit still, not through trying to shut down our feelings to get to some imagined state of peace, not through holding our bodies in rigid stillness, not through trying to escape our lives and our humanity and the suffering and the afflictive states and all of the emotions that go into being human, not by trying to escape those, not through detachment, which is what I thought spiritual practice was about, somehow rising above the body into some divine or enlightened spiritual state, and not through bearing down through effort and struggle and conflict and determination, but a quality of joyful ease. And that other beautiful line, the way is originally perfect and all pervading. That in this moment, how we are is completely perfect. There's no state we need to get from where we are to where we're supposed to be. But we can relax into how we are in this exact moment and discover the all pervading perfection of this moment. This quotation changed everything, and it expressed in words exactly what I was seeing in my friends sitting on the other side of the Zendo. There was something joyful and easy and relaxed and an experience of perfection in the moment that was astounding to me when I saw it. And I recognized in the quotation that I had read. The third thing that happened that gave me a key into how to begin to practice in a way that was effortless and joyful and perfect was I was talking to a friend of mine, Taishan, who was an 83-year-old Buddhist nun that I spent long hours sitting with, asking questions, watching the hummingbirds, watching her cats coil around her feet. And she said to me one time that her teacher, Roshi, had said to her that their Zen, their practice, their way of being, their way of living, the thing that they were devoting themselves to, was breathing Zen. That there was something inherent to the way they related to their breathing that allowed that Zen, that allowed that effortless, joyful perfection to unfold itself through the very act of breathing. I began a search to discover what that is, studying the practitioners that I admired most, reading the texts that talked about that effortless practice, one that wasn't a bearing down, but was a setting free. I also began to study the breath in many different ways, in many different traditions, and discovered that within the breath, there was a way of being that was not just about how we sit on the cushion, but is about how we live our lives. So what I'm going to be sharing comes out of those explorations and those discoveries. It's a way of working with the body instead of working against it, of in fact allowing the body to soften and quiet the mind instead of trying to bear down on the body with the mind to make the body be still. A way of embracing our feelings, both the ones that we call pleasant and the ones we call unpleasant, uncomfortable, or even painful. A way of being with those that deepens our practice instead of declaring war on those emotions and trying to get free from them. A way of cultivating deep relaxation in our bodies instead of rigidity and tightness and stress, not trying to be concrete Buddhas sitting on the earth, but soft and alive and breathing. A way of enjoying our lives. Because really, if our practice isn't helping us enjoy our lives, what exactly are we practicing? So, what I'm going to talk about tonight are some ways to be with the practice of meditation that isn't about achieving some state down the line, but is about learning how to be with ourselves and in relationship with our world in a way that's joyful and easy, a way of surrendering into the flow. So, the things I'll be sharing tonight involve three parts of our human experience that are part of your experience right now. One is that you have a body. And the fact of having a body is one of the most powerful parts of any spiritual practice. We spend our whole lives trying to move away from this body, to transcend this body, to overcome its feelings and sensations, when really the body is one of our most powerful allies, tools, and gifts in setting ourselves free. The second area of human experience I'll be spending a little time on is the breath, of learning how to relate to the breath in a different way than you may have ever related to it before, that allows the breath to quiet and to still and to open up space inside the body and inside our hearts and inside our minds, and perhaps to open us up beyond what we think of as ourselves, to experience ourselves in a greater way than we ever have before. And finally, I'm going to be talking about how we relate with vision and our field of vision, and how we can change that relationship in ways that, again, contribute to dissolving the sense of separation and rigidity and tension and effort that characterize so many of our lives. So to begin with, the body. I remember in the early days of my spiritual practice, I saw the body as an enemy. What I discovered is that there are within the body experiences that are the root and the foundation of all spiritual practice. And if we learn to cultivate those experiences within the body, we also cultivate those in the heart and in our mind and in our lives. The first of these is that we are supported. The body is supported right now as you're sitting listening to me. You could feel the earth under your feet. You can feel perhaps your body in the chair or on the floor or on the cushion. The body is supported. Most of us, however, go through our whole lives without that feeling of support, cut off from it, either by propping ourselves up very rigid and stiff and efforting, tightening everything from the ground all the way up, which really cuts us off from that felt sense of support in our bodies, cuts us off from the soft feeling of the whole body breathing into that support. Or we collapse. And when we collapse from exhaustion, depression, frustration, anxiety, the conditions of our lives, we can't feel that support rising up through the body either. So, in order to cultivate a body in meditation, the first essential act is discovering that we are supported. Even right now, as you're sitting here listening to me, you can bring your attention down to that experience of support. You can feel the earth there, the softness, the strength of it, perhaps the warmth or the coolness of it. And you can use your breath to connect with that feeling of support. You could also maybe perhaps move the feet slightly around on the earth, as if you were massaging the earth with your feet or massaging your feet with the earth, bringing aliveness and sensitivity, awareness, and kindness into that connection to feel that support. You can also experience the support if you're sitting in a chair or on a cushion or on the ground, is just sort of moving a little bit, bringing some life, bringing some sensitivity and some feeling to that experience of support underneath your body, and breathing into that feeling of support. The breath is a way of sensing. It's like hands, like fingers, a way when we breathe into where we meet a surface. It's a way of bringing consciousness and love and presence into where we touch. So we can feel that quality of support in our bodies. Many people make a big deal out of finding a correct posture for meditation or the correct place to sit. But the truth is, whether you're sitting on a cushion or you're sitting on the ground or in a chair, whether you're sitting in full lotus or half lotus or Burmese meditation posture, whatever position you're in, all meditation postures are designed to cultivate that deep felt sense of support. And once we have that physically, we can begin to feel that emotionally. We can feel that the earth really is supporting, lifting us up, holding us. When we connect with that, it changes our whole experience of ourselves. We're not cut off. We're not alone. We don't have to do it on our own. We don't have to struggle and push and effort. We just get to relax into the natural support of the earth. And whatever posture you're in, whatever meditation practice you're in, you can connect with that feeling of support. The second essential quality of the body's experience of meditation is alignment. Alignment with the flow of gravity that we all live inside on this earth. If you lean forward a little bit so that you're off center, you'll notice how much work you have to do up and down your spine just to sit upright. You can feel gravity pulling down on you and the effort that it takes. And then if you start to sit back very slowly, you'll notice there's a point where all that tension starts to unwind, where all the tension in your breath, you can hardly breathe when you're leaning forward, all that tension in your breath starts to relax. And there's a place of buoyancy and lightness where the body just seems to float. It's almost like gravity reverses. You can lean back too far and experience how much work that takes, the rigidity and the tension that you have to hold in the body to hold yourself up. But then as you come forward again, there's a lightness, and you naturally take a good, healthy, open breath just from being balanced. You could sit too far to one side or the other side. And as you do that, again, notice gravity pulling down until you come to that place of alignment. And in that place, the breath just opens. The body just settles and relaxes. When we are aligned with the flow of our lives, especially the flow of gravity, there's an effortlessness, an ease, a buoyancy. And you can feel that right in your body. You can also feel it in your head. Many of us spend our lives with our head either pushed forward or pushed back in some way, as if we were waiting for a blow or we were trying to see what's coming ahead and meet it before it's actually shown up. You can see what that's like if you just hold your head forward too much or you hold it back too much, and feel how much effort and tension and struggle that puts into everything. But if you play with that and find that middle place where the back of the neck up into the skull is just an extension of the spine, you can feel how the breath almost rises up the spine to the very crown and drops back down on the exhale. That place of buoyancy and lightness where you're not having to work to hold up this mass of thought and fear and anxiety and doubt and judgment, where it floats effortlessly and lightly without any particular struggle. The next quality of the body in meditation, if it is supported, and then there's a feeling of buoyancy and lightness coming from alignment, is that we want to be centered. We're so much up in the head all of the time. We're thinking and struggling and imagining and questioning and doubting. And our center of gravity, as a result of all that activity, moves very high up in the body and the head, which makes it much harder to support the head. If we can drop our center of gravity back down from here in our heads, perhaps down into our hearts, to feel the deep relatedness we share with everything in all creation. And then drop our center of gravity even deeper down into our belly, just below our navel, which is the natural center of gravity of the body. The mind begins to quiet. You could even imagine, perhaps, that you're riding a small elevator down from here in the head, riding that elevator down. Perhaps the breath is what moves the elevator. We breathe in from the earth. We feel the breath drop back down into the belly on the exhale. And we ride the breath down to the heart. Perhaps the elevator doors open in the heart. And just for a moment, we imagine we were looking out at the world from that height, with that perspective, with an attitude of kindness, with compassion, with a feeling of taking joy in other people's joys, with a feeling of equanimity. These are all gifts of the heart. Looking out from the heart into the world, breathing into the heart from the world, breathing out into the world through the heart. And then the elevator doors can close, and we follow the breath a little down, deeper into the belly, into the very center of the body. And when our awareness is centered down in the belly, looking out at the world from our gut, from the very heart of this physical being, everything else organizes itself around that center. Our feelings organize themselves around that center. Our thoughts begin to organize themselves around that center. Just dropping our attention down. Now, the breath is the simplest way of doing that, just like the breath is the simplest way of feeling supported or feeling alignment. The breath is the simplest way of feeling centered. You could, for example, simply place your hands down on your belly, just below your navel, feeling the rise and fall of the deep belly, feeling the warmth and the weight of your hands there, holding that part of you, holding your center, holding all that you've pushed down over the years deep down inside, your anger, your sadness, your guilt, your shame, your joy, whatever those feelings are, and holding them with tenderness and kindness and awareness and presence. Feeling the movement of the belly, feeling the emotions that stir there. Dropping down into that place of deep centeredness. You also could, if you've ever seen some of the traditional mudras of meditation, a very common one is this, where the left hand is resting in the right hand. And they're sort of just resting with the hands gently tucked below the navel, the thumb tips gently touching. This is simply a way of bringing our awareness and our attention and our breath, our kindness and our presence deep down to our centers. And if we bring our awareness to our center that way, we experience our whole lives in a fundamentally different way. The last essential quality of the body in meditation that can change our whole relationship to the practice and can change how we experience our emotions and our thoughts and our beingness is to allow the body to softly move with the breath. Again, the breath is the thing that gives us access to this soft movement in the body. When we were tiny children, we didn't sit still when we breathed. Our whole body moved with the breath. The hips slightly opened, the legs rolled outwards, the feet rolled outwards just a little with every single breath. The pelvis rocked forward as we inhaled and back as we exhaled. The back arched slightly. The shoulders rolled back and the heart opened. The head even bobbed softly up and down with the breath. The whole body was soft and moved with every single breath. And yet there was a quality of such stillness when we were resting in that breath. It wasn't the stillness of rigidity and fixity and holding ourselves tight and not moving, but it was the stillness of a body truly at rest and in a healthy state of relaxation. One of the results of that, as you've probably seen, is that small children, they're very adaptive and very flexible, and they kind of bounce. Not that they never get hurt if they fall, but there's a softness in their falling. There's an availability in their falling that keeps them from getting terribly hurt. Unlike us, as we get older, and the tension and the tightness and the rigidity gets more and more, so that if someone who's a little older falls, we can really hurt ourselves. If we allow the gentle movement in the breath to reclaim that softness and availability and openness over time, we can cultivate that quality of softness, that gentle movement in stillness. And as we do that, we cultivate a quality of softness in the heart and a quality of softness in the head, a good kind of softness to have in a head that has often been filled with painful thoughts, and a stillness and a quietness. The simplest way to do that is to just notice in your body what's moving and what's not moving when you breathe, and just to welcome the breath into the whole body, allowing that soft movement to grow, not to draw it in, not to suck it in or force it in, but to allow the breath, to welcome the breath to come down into the body in a relaxed, soft way. And on the exhale, to relax it, to just let the exhale go so it can drop out of us. When we do that, the body will begin to soften. And wherever we find a place that's not feeling the breath, we can just welcome the breath there and allow the breath to do the work of softening that area. Now, there's so many other techniques I could teach you around how to get the body in touch with that feeling of grounding, how to get the body in touch with that feeling of alignment and lightness and buoyancy, how to get the body in touch with that feeling of centeredness and the soft movement of the breath. I teach workshops on that and work with people, and would be happy to show you more of that sometime. You can find that at my website. But for now, I just want to give you a glimpse of what's possible and some pointers on what you might explore in your own experience. Now, one of the questions that often comes is around this, well, what do I do with all my thoughts as the body is feeling grounded, as the body is coming into alignment and centering and soft movement and stillness? What do I do with my mind? Well, you can do the exact same thing that you've been doing with your body the whole time, which is to breathe into the mind, to physically notice where in your consciousness the thoughts are happening that are afflicting you, whether they're painful thoughts or creative thoughts or joyful thoughts, but to breathe into the space where you sense those thoughts existing, and to breathe into the feelings and to breathe into the sensations of those thoughts. And to bring your attention off of the storyline in the thoughts a little bit to the feeling and the sensation and the space of the thought. And doing that allows the thought to soften a little bit, to be a little less compelling and a little less fixed. Notice this suggestion, it doesn't say think about the thought. It doesn't say agree with the thought and follow the storyline of the thought. It doesn't say push down the thought or shut down the thought or argue with it, wage a court case against your thinking. Because in my experience, all of those meet thoughts on their own ground. And when we meet thoughts on their own ground, they win almost all the time. But treating thoughts as a manifestation of energy within the body and breathing into that space tends to allow the thoughts to soften a little bit. And you can always get back to the thoughts later and see if they're interesting or worth arguing with or worth believing. But for now, just to say, you could be right, thought. I don't know, but right now, I want to explore what's happening in the body that you're occurring within. And suddenly, meditation doesn't become a mental process. It's not about doing anything with the mind or with the thoughts, but about breathing into the physical experience of having a body. The second part that I mentioned earlier about working with the body in meditation is with the breath. As we begin to explore the breath, breathing into the whole body, and perhaps I should say a bit about breathing into the whole body. Most of us tend to think of just breathing into the lungs. But as I mentioned earlier, the whole body moves if it's soft when we breathe. The organs of the abdomen get massaged, the lymph system gets a nudge, the heart gets a nudge. Every part of the body, our nervous systems, are actually the parasympathetic and sympathetic are brought into balance through our breathing. That as we breathe, the entire body breathes. Every cell in the body is involved in respiration, every cell in every part. So really the whole body does breathe. And even your skin breathes. If you were to cover all the pores of your skin and leave your mouth and your nose open, you'd still be at some risk of suffocation because the skin breathes. The whole body does. As we begin to soften the body through the practice of breathing, we begin to discover something else miraculous and marvelous that we might have never noticed if we hadn't softened a little, which is that the body does not experience itself as a solid object. We think of the body as a solid object. When we see the body, we see it because of the ways we use our eyes. We see the body as a solid object. But in this moment, your body doesn't experience itself as solid. In this moment, as you soften and you allow the body to just breathe, supported by the earth, aligned by gravity, centered and softly moving, you'll discover that your body in this moment experiences itself as a field of awareness with no clear boundaries and edges. It doesn't feel itself stopping at the skin, but it feels itself as a field of perception or awareness filled with sensations and emotions that arise and fall, that extend outwards from the body and inwards from the world, with no clear separation between you and others. And as we soften into the body's experience of itself, we can't help but soften the idea of ourselves, the sense of separation and distance from the world begins to soften as we allow the body to feel its own scintillating, impermanent, constantly shifting, open, spacious, energetic nature. Now, the body is experiencing that already, but our whole lives we've been distracted by stories and ideas of ourself that fix our sense of self and separate us from each other. As we breathe softly and relax into the body's natural experience of being alive, that changes. Also, we discover that something really miraculous, which is probably the most important thing about the breath that we can discover, is it's so simple, but it's so profound and so powerful. The body feels good being alive. It really feels good. It loves being alive. It has an effortless, easeful joy just in the experience of being here and breathing. It feels good to let the breath in, to let the world rush into us and fill us. It feels good to be full for just a moment, to be full of ourselves, ourselves being really the whole world of phenomenal existence. And then to breathe out and to let go. Feels so good. And then there's this lovely rest after the exhale, where we just get to rest in a place of utter spaciousness and emptiness. It feels so wonderful to the body. And as we discover the natural breath in the body, we get in touch with these qualities of how good it feels to receive and be full and empty and let go. We get to feel the basic goodness of our own existence, which the body is always enjoying. It's just drowned out by the storm of thoughts and the reactions that those stir in the body. Now, this doesn't mean, some people have asked me, well, did all of your twitches and your spasms and your aches and your pains go away? And no, they absolutely didn't. A lot of the worst, most painful, most tense ones, yes, they went away. But what happens as we progressively soften is that a whole lifetime of afflictive rigidity and tension and stress begins to release from the body. The tensions, the aches, the pains, the spasms, the emotions that we have carried down inside for years, they begin to rise as we rediscover the natural breath. But as they arise, we no longer resist them, push down on them, try to stop them, try to make them go away. We just meet them with that same softness and presence. 70 to 80% of the pain that you experience with any pain in the body is probably due to the way that you respond to that pain, to the tension, to the tightness, to the clenching, to the bearing down or pushing away that you apply to that pain. But when you allow yourself to meet that pain when it arises with softness and presence, and you allow it to move through the body, our experience of pain becomes transitory, temporary, and not permanent. It changes the whole quality of our experience of pain. Not that pain goes away. That seems to be part of the package of being in a human body, in any body at times. But we meet it entirely differently, and we don't do things that make the pain even worse. And so our system is free, layer by layer by layer, to release that tightness and that tension, and to allow those things to go on their own, which leaves us so much more free and so much more alive, softer and more available to the easeful joy of our own lives. Now, the last piece that I mentioned that I'd love to take a few minutes to tell you about because it's so powerful is the third part of our experience of being in a human body in the practice of meditation, which is we have these eyes, we have this capacity of vision, and we could explore all the other senses. But because our vision is so instrumental in our experience of separation, in our experience of effort and struggle, it's really powerful just to come into a different relationship with vision. Many of us spend most of our lives fixing our attention on things, one thing at a time, in a very hard and a very directive way, focusing on things. And when we focus on things, we don't just narrow the field of our vision, we focus our experience of being alive. We narrow it, we tighten it, we contract it, we make it rigid until our whole experience of being alive is very focused and tight, which tightens our breath, which tightens the availability of our emotions, which tightens our experience of being alive. It also creates this illusion that we're separate from other beings, that we're not deeply and intrinsically connected with them. So I want to suggest a way of being with the experience of seeing that softens that sense of separation a little bit, that opens us up to a fuller experience of being alive. The first step is the one that we've already talked about, which is of being in your body and breathing in your body and feeling as if the breath were breathing through the whole body, through all the feelings, all the sensations, all the experiences inside, of breathing through the whole body, so that we're not dividing ourselves into teeny tiny little parts and focusing on just one bit, especially the bits up here. But we're breathing into the whole of who we are, and not just the physical body, but into the felt sense of the body, which is larger than just the physical. The second step, once we're breathing through the whole body, is of breathing through the eyes, breathing through the whole field of vision. One thing that I often encourage people to do, and you can try this now, is to rest your hands on your eyes, the fingers gently resting on the forehead, the thumbs on the temples. And just inviting your eyes to stop doing all the hard work of efforting and struggling to see, of focusing, feeling the soft warmth of the hands, the soft darkness, and breathing through the eyes. You might run your hands back over your scalp to your occipital lobe and just kind of lean your head back in your hands just a little bit. Breathing in through the warmth and the tenderness, the kindness of your hands. Then maybe dragging your hands down your jaw, breathing through a soft, open, relaxed jaw. Allowing your face to be soft and open and relaxed. And then imagining you're breathing in through your whole face, not just through your nostrils, not just through your mouth, but your whole face, your whole body, soft and open and relaxed. You could imagine you're breathing the whole world into your heart, and imagine you're breathing your heart out into the whole world. This softening, this relaxing of the eyes and the back of the neck and the jaw creates a fundamentally different experience of relationship with the world. We're not wearing a mask, we're not hiding, we're not numbing, we're not protecting. We're available, we're open. The heart can be seen in our eyes and our face. And we can let the world in. It's a safe world to let in, at least in certain moments, with certain people that we trust. The last step that we can take to change our experience of how we use our vision is to widen our vision, to take in the whole periphery all the way out to the edges of our vision, not focusing on one thing intently, tensing these muscles, but allowing the vision itself to be as soft as the muscles of our face, and breathing in through our whole field of vision from the very periphery, and breathing in down through the whole body. And then as we breathe out, breathing out through our whole field of vision, breathing out through the whole body, through the whole field of vision, so that the breath is sweeping through everything that we think of as outside of us, coming into us, into everything we are on the inside. And then the breath sweeps through everything we are on the inside and pours out into everything we think of as on the outside. And with that soft, open vision, connected with that soft, open body, and breathing through all of it, we begin to experience one breath moving through the body and the whole field of vision. We begin to experience vision not just as visual phenomena, but as a felt phenomena, as a feeling moving through us, as life, as light, as love, pouring through everything, connecting everything, bringing everything together in one whole. We experience the truth of our nature, which is that we're not separate at all. And of course, we tighten again. The body tightens, the vision tightens. We start thinking, and that's okay. We just notice the tightening. We breathe into the space of tightness. We include it into the space of our breath instead of shutting it down. And we come back to allowing the breath to move through our whole wide open, soft field of vision, through the body, and back out again in one unending dance. Now, the way I've talked about meditating is a way that you can practice regardless of what your specific spiritual tradition is, regardless of what mental activity you associate with meditation. So whether you're doing zikr or mantra or kirtan or zazen or hesychast practice, whatever your practice is, you're still in a body. And you probably thought of meditation mostly as what the mind does. But hopefully, after this webinar, you have a different understanding of how whatever the mind is doing happens as a reflection of our experience of being in a body. And as we change our relationship with our body and our breath and our vision, we open up a whole new way of experiencing ourselves in connection with ourselves and with each other and with that one life that moves through everything. So thank you so much for taking the time to listen to all of this, to feel all of this in your own body. If you're interested in exploring more about the body in meditation, you can attend one of my retreats or one of my other webinars, or you can work with me personally, either in person or on the web or by phone, to help you discover a way of being in meditation that isn't about what you do for 20 minutes a day or 10 minutes a day, and isn't about effort and struggle and perfection and spiritual advancement, but is about cultivating a quality of joyful ease in every part of your life, in everything you do, and in every relationship. So I look forward to seeing you when our paths cross. And until then, breathe easy.